The first one is down. Johnson & Johnson's vaccine has now been withheld. It will not be being administered. And this is by order of the CDC after a few women suffered from serious health complications and one woman died. Let's talk about it. So the New York Times has just reported that the Johnson & Johnson vaccines have been paused after rare clotting cases have occurred. So let's go ahead and just take a brief look at this article. As you can see here, it talks about the fact that the injections of Johnson & Johnson coronavirus have come to a sudden halt across the country on Tuesday after the federal health agencies called for a pause in the vaccine's use as they examine a rare blood clotting disorder that emerged in 6 patients. All 6 women between the ages of 18 and 48 and all developed the illness. They were between the ages of 18 and 48 and all developed the illness within 1 to 3 weeks of vaccination. One woman in Virginia died, and a second woman in Nebraska has been hospitalized and is in critical condition. More than 7 million people in the United States have received Johnson & Johnson so far, and another 10 million doses have been shipped out to the states, according to the data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So, the article also goes on to say that this is unique to Johnson & Johnson. And before we get into that, I do want to just go ahead and address the fact that I thought this was a conspiracy theory. That's what we were saying, hey, maybe we should be paying more attention, because the worst thing that could happen is that because of the financial incentivization of these hospitals to just jab, the worst thing that can happen is that people are either basically coerced via pop culture to not speak up about what they're going through, what their families have been through, or that the doctors will not hear what is being said to them. One example that I can think of, as many of you all know, my grandfather just recently passed away about 36 hours, a little bit less actually, after receiving the Moderna vaccine. When my grandmother told them that he died right after taking the vaccine, because they asked, obviously, has he changed his diet, any new medication, et cetera, she was like, no, he got the vaccine. They were like, oh, can't be that, sorry. Didn't want to hear it. Refusing to, they decided to make up a heart attack scenario when my grandfather's never had heart problems. And my grandmother personally knows somebody else who went through that. Died 4 hours later after receiving the vaccine. There's another another healthcare professional that we talked about here. Southern California, died, was hospitalized hours after taking the vaccine, died within 12 hours. They were not allowed to, in that particular case, they still didn't technically attribute it to the vaccine. In my grandfather's case, they were not allowed to attribute it to the vaccine. They didn't even want to hear it. So I'm very thankful that this one person was able to break through and their family was able to be like, look, you need to look at this. It's happening. Once again, in a situation where if you were experiencing very severe symptoms, you took the vaccine and then you, over a course of about 3 to 5 days, stopped experiencing those symptoms, then they would attribute that to the vaccine. So in a case where someone is dying within 36 to 48 hours, or sometimes within 7 days after taking the vaccine, by what logic do you not at least somewhat attribute it to the vaccine? The truth is, people from the ages 18 to 48, unless they have serious underlying conditions, have not been the ones passing away or suffering from serious symptoms if they do get coronavirus. It's older people, people with underlying conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So the fact that these vaccines even have the potential to cause these issues is extremely problematic. I'm very, I guess I'm thankful to a certain degree that they even allowed this to be published. But in my humble estimation, I actually believe that they allowed it because the two, as far as the stock market is concerned and investments are concerned, it's Pfizer and Moderna that dominate the market. They're the two largest in the country. So who knows? This could be just a competitive hit on Johnson and Johnson. Right? We don't know. But I believe that that's why it was likely allowed to be published. Why it ever reached the eyes and ears of the CDC where they felt like they were okay with publishing this. But I am thankful nonetheless that it was published because it shines the light on at least one thing. At least one thing. Believe it or not, science is not perfect. Vaccine science is not perfect. You have to look at results and conclusions over time, side effects over time, over a massive group of people in completely different circumstances and see how it will affect them. That's how science works. Even if you're doing it right, you still have to follow those steps. But in the case where this is rushed, Johnson & Johnson has unique technology for its vaccine. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines use mRNA technology, which is also unique and new. So why wouldn't we assume that there could be negative side effects? Later on in this article, they say that we don't want to cause too much of a panic because we don't want to discourage people from getting the vaccines or getting vaccinated altogether. Here's my thing. You give people the autonomy of information and you let them make their own choice. You don't get, because you're basically saying, I still maintain the reality that the data is inaccurate. You ever heard that J. Cole song when he said, say she only had sex with like 4 or 5 dudes, so you got to multiply by 3? It's like that when you're talking about anything the U.S. government has done bad to anybody. This is what they've caught. This is what they are allowing to be reported. So when these authors, there's 3 of them, when they say there's a fear that accurate information will cause people to not want to get the vaccine, that's interesting because what it should do instead, and what their take should be instead, is hopefully this data that is being presented will cause these companies to double back and make sure that they're getting it right so that people are no longer discouraged from taking a vaccine given this new factual information. That's what it should be. That's what should be being said. But they immediately, once again, put the onus on people. We don't, they might not want to take the vaccine because, some people getting sick and a couple people have been dying, but like, it's not even that serious, bro. You still got to take it because we might die. Once again, if you're between the ages of 18 and 48, the odds of you dying are like less than a 1/10 of a percent. Actually, I think it's even less than that. So, and these are the women. Once again, also the men. There are men who have passed away that have once again not been reported. And this is why this once again. So remember what I said about the healthcare professional, white guy, older, about 40-year-old white guy in California, Southern California specifically. When that happened, why wasn't there a New York Times article printed about this and the people who had adverse reactions? Because he died. It was covered. It was covered in a local newspaper in California, or a local news organization in California, by one of the local stations. So why wasn't this given the same? Oh, because I want to say it was Moderna. It was either Moderna or Pfizer, but it was one of those two. And like I just said, those are 2 of the largest stocks out of all the companies who are producing these vaccines. So we have the issue with Johnson & Johnson being made public. We have the issue with AstraZeneca coming to light. That's becoming more of an issue, of course, in Western Europe and in Australia, but either way. So how many red flags do we have to see before we say, hey, let's take this back to the drawing board and allow people to have access to the solutions that have already been made available, like ivermectin, like hydroxychloroquine and zinc? Give people a fighting chance without them having to put their lives in danger. That's what that's what my natural conclusion would be. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you what to do. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what I am trying to help you understand is there are options, but you're not being given the option to explore the options. And everyone who has repeatedly discussed the options are considered to be conspiracy theorists. It's weird. So now what? Do we call New York Times conspiracy theorists? Because now they're telling you there are problems. The CDC is telling you there are problems. Epic Times just posted an article on the 12th talking about the extremely severe side effects of Moderna's vaccine. These people have been getting the data wrong this entire time. We tried to tell y'all about what was happening in a nursing home. No one wanted to listen to us. So we're telling you now, be wary and be careful. Do what you feel is best for you, but understand that there are options available to you beyond what CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News is telling you. You don't have to feel pressure to do anything one way or the other outside of taking care of yourself and doing what's best for you and your family. But 9 times out of 10, I can tell you just from history, it's not doing what anything the establishment tells you to do. Just letting you know from history, you know? So I'd love to know what you think about this. Like this video, share this video, leave a comment below, but always remember, more than anything else, find your balance.